Chapter by Voice presents The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Introduction. Feeling weak is a miserable experience. If each of us is given the opportunity to choose, we will inevitably choose more power. However, most attempts to gain power are frustrating. In order to reach it, you must be clever and democratic. And for this, the writer Robert Greene asserts in his controversial book that if you can seduce your opponents and charm them, you will obtain absolute power. Greene says that the better you become at handing power, the better friend, lover, and person you become. This is because you learn how to make others feel good about themselves, making them depend on you as a source of intense pleasure around them. What are the 48 laws of power? For Greene, strength is a wonder. It's a game, social game. To master it, you must be able to study and understand people, but you must always take the indirect path to power. This book includes 48 pieces of wisdom inspired by men and women across a variety of civilizations for more than 3,000 years, and all of them have one point in common. Greene's book is a distillation of this accumulated wisdom and is a real way to guide how to become more powerful. It's an invaluable source of knowledge for those looking to get ahead. In this summary, we'll go through each of these laws and extract the most important things you should consider before you take your next step. First law: never shine more than your chief. Nicolas Fouquet made the mistake of appearing better than his king, Louis XIV, and he spent the rest of his days in prison, always making someone above you feel comfortably superior. Hide the extent of your talents, because your leaders may feel insecure. The better the appearance of your boss, the higher the level of power you will get. Leaders want to feel safe and valued. This may include making a few harmless mistakes so that you can seek help from your boss. But if you were more attractive to him, it would be best to avoid working for him altogether. The second law: do not put too much trust in friends and learn to use enemies. Michael III of the Byzantine Empire was saved from death by Basileus. Michael, in turn, rewarded him with many gifts and gave him influence and prestige. Instead of showing gratitude, Basilius wanted to more power, and his greed drove him to kill Michael. When it comes to trust, always try to make your own safety distance. People are selfish and go after their own interests. Friends are more likely to betray you sooner because they are more likely to feel envy. But if you hired an ex-enemy, he will prove he is more trustworthy, as he has more to prove. As a result, you have to be more wary of your friends than of your enemies. And if you think you have no enemies, find a way to find them. You are often mistaken as to how well you know your friends. That is because honesty is seldom. It strengthens bonds, so friends often hide their true feelings for each other. This can be very dangerous, says Greene. Keep friends for friendship and leave work to the talented. Whenever you can, bury grudges with your enemy and put him at your service. Do it. Asked. Serve enemies to define your cause more clearly to the public, even if this requires framing it as a struggle of good against evil. It is better to know who and where your opponents are than to know your true enemies. The third law: hide your intentions. Always keep your intentions vague. In this way, your opponents cannot defend themselves. Mislead them, and by the time they start noticing your schemes, it will be too late. Use the human tendency to trust appearances to your advantage. When you make a series of false intentions before your opponents, they will inevitably fail to see what you really plan. By being vague, you make people less inclined to doubt your intentions and plans, because people usually trust appearances in the fourth law. Always be sparing with your words, because they can't predict their king's reaction. The servants of Louis XIV were frightened every time they had to deliver bad news to him. All he would say was, "I'll think about it," and then make them leave the room. Then comes either action or a decision not to do anything about the issue. Strong people know how to impress others with their little words. The more you talk, the more likely you are to end up saying something stupid. While people are constantly trying to figure out what other people are thinking, the silence makes them feel uncomfortable. By controlling what you reveal, you can exercise great power. It is more likely, however, that people will fill in the silence you leave, revealing more information about their intentions and weaknesses. Always keep a sharp silence. Speak only when you have something meaningful to say. And remember that actions are stronger than words. Fifth law. Many things depend on reputation. If you defended your reputation during World War II, Rommel was famous for his superior ingenuity and cunning deceptive strategy. His opponent's army was frustrated, and most soldiers doubted their chances of success against him. Strong reputation can double your strength and distract potential opponents from discovering what you really are. It increases your presence and strength without having to spend a lot of energy. Your reputation is the cornerstone of your strength. You can use it to intimidate and win, but if you become deformed, you expose yourself to attack. Make your reputation impenetrable and anticipate attacks before they happen. Help yourself in this quest by destroying your enemies, by exploiting the holes in their reputation, and allowing the common people to destroy them. Your reputation always precedes you, so build and protect it carefully. Law 6. Gain attention at all costs. Pablo Picasso would not allow himself to fade from the background. He preferred to paint something ugly and out of the ordinary than to be forgotten. Every publicity is good publicity. Don't let yourself become one of many. Since everything is judged on the basis of appearance, you must stand out. Make yourself appear bigger, more interesting, and more mysterious to the masses. One way to do this is to surround your name with a sense of excitement. Remember that fame of any kind brings power. It is better to be slandered rather than ignored. A strong counterbalance to this approach boils down to creating an air of mystery that surrounds you. Keep your playing cards hidden. People are drawn to those who seem very mysterious. The mysterious atmosphere increases your presence and creates a state of anticipation, so that everyone is anxious for the next step. Law 7. Take advantage of others' efforts. Thomas Edison was not so much a scientist as a businessman. He was taking advantage of the genius of Nikola Tesla and gaining all the appreciation. Never do what others can do for you. Use their wisdom and knowledge to advance your cause. Thus, you will appear more efficient and informed. Eventually, the people who worked for you will be forgotten, and you will always be remembered. If you think it's important to do all the work yourself, you won't go far. So, find those with the skills that you lack, and find a way to either take their work as your own, or hire them and put your name on their efforts. But, to do it effectively, your attitude must be safe, or else people will call you a swindler. Law number 8. Lure others into doing what you want. Otto von Bismarck says, "When I bait a deer, do not shoot the first deer that comes to sniff, but wait for it to gather the whole herd around him." Force your opponent to respond to your moves. It is always better to lure your opponents to you, as they will have to abandon their plans and strategies in the process. Lure them and then attack them. This prevents you from responding to your opponents. Instead, it forces them to respond to your movements. This means playing the long game, sitting still and keeping calm while others fall into your carefully planned traps. But the quality of your traps will only be as attractive as your bait. If you taste sweet enough, Your opponent will only become blind, allowing you to gain supreme power. Law number 9. Win with your actions, not your words. Mosianus needed powerful ships. His engineer was prompt to claim that a different kind of ammunition, which he preferred, would be much better for the conquest. Although his words were true, he was sentenced to death. Don't argue with those in power. Agree with them, suggest an alternative, and then present your argument. Any victory you gain through argumentation will be short-lived. Resentment will be exacerbated by your opponents rather than a real change of opinion. Instead, let your actions speak for you. If people agree with you through your actions rather than your words, you are more likely to influence lasting opinions. The words are many, and people will say anything to prove a point. As for the action, it is where you show your mettle. Law number 10. Beware of the wretched, lest their enemy pass to you. Lula Montes overthrew the king of Bavaria and his whole kingdom by seducing him. Her lust for destruction and chaos was insatiable. Countless lives have been lost due to her nature. Emotional states can be as contagious as diseases. Sometimes, some miserable people destroy their own destiny, and they can destroy you too if you get too close to them. So be sure to associate with the happy and the lucky. The unfortunate tends to present himself as a victim, and before you realize that he is the cause of his misfortune, he has infected you with misery. Who you decide to associate with is very important, and by associating with wretched people, you waste your valuable time and drain your potential power. Cut off the firefighters. Try to help them instead, and you too will burn with them. Law 11. Learn to keep people dependent on you. Otto von Bismarck led the king's hand to unite the mighty kingdom. No one but Bismarck could do that. It has proven to be an indispensable asset that, to maintain independence, you must make others need and want you. The more people rely on you, the more freedom you have. But be careful not to teach those around you enough information to get them to do things themselves. This method is the best way to get people to do what you want without forcing or hurting them. Once you have dependents, they depend on you, and you can skillfully do with them as you wish. Law number 12. Use selective candor to disarm your victim after Count Victor Lustig convinced Al Capone to invest. The $50,000 cash was kept with him for 2 months. Instead of running away with the money, he returned it and admitted the deal failed. Capone gave Lustig the $5,000 reward for admiring his magnanimity and honesty. The key to a successful dodge is distraction. Generosity diverts the attention of those you wish to deceive. Learn to give before you take. This is how skilled to get what you want to get distracted. Generosity the attention of those who want to kill them. Learn to give before you take. This is how skilled to get what you want. Law number 13. Does not appeal to the kindness or people returning the favor, luring them with their interests. In 433 BC, Corcyra and Corinth were preparing for war. Both wanted to secure help from the Athenians. The Corinthians chose to remind the Athenians of their outstanding debts. While Corcyra spoke only of common interests, a joint naval force directed to Sparta. In the end, the Athenians decided to ally themselves with Corcyra. If you have to ask for help, make sure that your request includes a benefit for the other party. When your allies see that they have an interest in what you're proposing, they are more likely to respond enthusiastically. Self-interest is the biggest motivator for people. Once you have mastered the art of designing what others want and using it to advance your own plans, there is no limit to what you can achieve. In sales of any kind, factual arguments will always trump emotional appeals. The past does not matter much. Don't count on loyalty. Aim at win-win deals for all. Law number 14. Courtship to watch. Charles Maurice Talleyrand, the French politician and mastermind behind the defeat of Napoleon Bonaparte, had been holding back and causing others to talk endlessly about themselves until they came to the point of betraying their ideas, intentions, and strategies. Knowing your opponent is essential. By introducing yourself as a friend, you can ask indirect questions and gradually make your opponents reveal their weakness and their intentions. Once you know this information, you can better predict what their next move is. It is always better to do it yourself. With an interrogation disguised as a friendly chat, the victim will not even notice. Learn to judge one's character by what it reveals, so that you can recognize a threat before it arises. Test people's sincerity before you think of trusting them. Law number 15. Crush your enemy. To destroy your enemy in part means that he will eventually recover and seek revenge. You can only gain peace and tranquility if your enemies are completely vanished. If you can remove all of your opponent's options, they will have no choice but to submit to your will. When they have nothing to negotiate or any room for maneuver, you have crushed them. Law number 16. Master the art of absence to increase your esteem and prestige. A man said to Darwish, "Why don't I see you more often?" Darwish replied, "Because the phrase, 'Why didn't you come to see me?' sweeter in my ear than, 'Why did you come again?'" Quoted from Idris Shah's book, The Caravan of Dreams. The more present you are, the more common you seem. Create an atmosphere of rarity around yourself to increase the expected value. If you are currently in an established group, withdraw intermittently until others talk about you and like you more. To do this effectively, you have to learn when it is a good time to quit. And by doing that, you are forcing people to respect you. And as soon as you return from your absence, you will appear resurrected and people will be relieved to see you again. Law number 17. Terrorize others by surprise and breaking expectation. Once Pablo Picasso became a known artist, everyone assumed that whatever work he did had to be calculated. But art dealer Paul Rosenberg was confused. When Picasso told him one day that they would no longer work together, Rosenberg couldn't figure out why and offered him a much better deal. Humans are creatures that usually look for familiar patterns in other people's behavior. By acting unpredictably, your opponents will tire of trying to predict and analyze your moves. This means that the matter may be remarkable from time to time without warning. When you always act as expected, you give others power over you. If you act suddenly, they will feel that they do not understand you and will be intimidated. Similarly, if you find yourself vulnerable, using a strategy of unexpected moves can confuse your enemies and prompt them to make tactical mistakes. The unpredictable is terrifying. When you don't know what to expect, you can't prepare properly. You can't make a smart plan, because you're in the dark. Put others in this position when you negotiate with them. Law number 18. Do not build castles to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. If you decide to isolate yourself from your enemies and the world at large, you cut yourself off from valuable information. This makes you vulnerable to attack. It is always better to mingle with people where you are more protected. Because humans are social creatures, strength comes from social interaction. The more isolated you are, the easier it is to be deceived and lost touch with reality. When someone urges you to remove your friends and family members from your life, they realize that they want to control and influence you. Whether they did it on purpose or not is a bad thing. Be wary of keeping you away from others for too long. Whether you are an introvert or not, you can cause yourself great psychological damage by alienating others from you, and therefore, To become strong, you must put yourself at the center of things. The activity should revolve around you. Resist the urge to hold back when you feel uncertain. Instead of getting stuck inside, focus on finding old allies and force yourself to switch to new social circles. Law number 19. Know who you're dealing with so that you don't make anyone out of ignorance. Muhammad Shah al-Khwarizm and Alchik were beheading the messengers of Genghis Khan, who came in peace with gifts great. Genghis Khan declared war, captured the enemy's capital, and killed his opponent by pouring molten silver into his eyes and ears. Later, Genghis Khan seized Samarkand, brutally conquering Muhammad's vast empire. What would have happened to Adolf Hitler if he had the chance to become an artist? Perhaps history would have been completely different. Avoid offending others. You don't know who you're dealing with, even though we live in a time when everyone resents, and the level of political correctness limits sheer madness. Choose your opponents wisely. There are some people who, if defeated, will spend the rest of their lives looking for revenge. The skill of measuring people correctly is the most important in terms of gaining and maintaining power. Make sure you know everything about a person before you work with them. However, do not rely on your instincts to understand a person, and never trust appearances. Watch your target over an extended period of time to get a more realistic picture of its nature. Law number 20. Do not commit yourself to loyalty. Sibiades, a Greek soldier and statesman, found himself honored by the Athenians and Spartans for his influence on the Persians, and by the Persians because of its influence on the Greek city-states. Instead of sticking to one side, he played all these roles in his favor. Loyalty to one person is the equivalent of surrendering yourself to another person. Stay away from petty fights and quarrels. Be neutral whenever you can. Law number 21. Lure your prey by pretending to be less intelligent than them. Socrates said, "The only wisdom is to know that you know nothing." In fact, Socrates did not know anything, but this was his way of disarming people. Sometimes you have to play the fool, making your opponents less wary of you. Nobody enjoys feeling stupid. As a result, the great trick is to make your opponents feel smarter. And once they believe they are smarter, they will never doubt you that showing intelligence to your opponents is stupid. To pretend to be stupid to them is the pinnacle of intelligence. Law number 22. Dodging by submission to turn your weakness into strength. The Athenians offered 1,000,000 people an opportunity to surrender, but the latter rejected it. Despite their alliance, the Spartans did not come to their rescue. Milos was destroyed, its inhabitants massacred, and the rest enslaved. In the words of Cardinal Dorites, "The weak never give in when they have to. Surrender before you are defeated. This will buy you more time to attack and retaliate. By your surrender, you deprive your enemies of the satisfaction of your destruction, and thus make the process of surrender a tool of strength." Surrender means gaining power because you make your opponents believe they have defeated you. You must avoid weakness, but when you find yourself in a weak position, choose to fight another day. You will lose the current battle, but the war is not over yet. Law number 23. Concentrate your strikes so as not to squander your efforts. The greater the empire's territory, the weaker it becomes. Great lands need strong borders. Otherwise, another barbarian tribe might take it, as happened with Rome. Your armies are stronger when you put them together. Divide them, and you may not be able to protect the empire from invasion. Conserve your energies by focusing them all on one source of energy. When looking for such a source, select one that will support you for a long time to come. You gain greater strength by finding a uniquely rich source than you find yourself facing more superficial sources of strength. Strength exists in concentrated form. In any organization, power will come from a small group of people who hold all the strings. As a result, the force of oil is like, you'll not only find it once in order to ensure for yourself the wealth and power of continuous law. Number 24 has perfected the role of the exercise of the attributes of a man. Footnote brilliant. 1 cannot edjdt man. Footnote accomplished without reference to Charles Maurice de Talleyrand, the man who brought down Napoleon Bonaparte, master of the battlefield. Maurice was an ideal follower. He wasn't helpless. He didn't trust anyone, but he seemed trustworthy. He didn't talk much, but he found the right words and the right timing when he wanted to talk. Everyone loved him. He was charming, intelligent, and helpful. He seemed neutral, always had a genuine smile on his face, and no one doubted his intentions for a moment. Everyone loved him. He was charming, intelligent, and helpful. He appeared neutral, always wore a genuine smile on his face, and no one ever doubted his intentions for a single moment. And in this way, he managed to attain the most powerful positions, even more powerful than the king himself, without the risks associated with that title. He was like a shadow, observing the current state of the chessboard. Pieces may fall and be sacrificed on both sides, but he knew he would win regardless of everything. The subordinate wields power through separate channels. By yielding to his superiors, he gradually gains an increasing amount of authority. There are several steps one can take to become a skilled subordinate, including the following: practicing indifference, adapting your style and language according to your audience, avoiding being the bearer of bad news, never criticizing your superiors, being self-aware, controlling your emotions, and being a source of pleasure. You are playing the role of the subordinate, whether you like it or not. You must play the game of power and choose to be good at it.